Cape Fear Business Roundtable is sponsored by two branding partners located under one roof right here in southeastern North Carolina. Pioneer Strategies is a strategic communication firm focused on helping you build success through effective strategic communication. Pioneer Specialties is your promotional products partner, ready to help you through the entire process from product research through product delivery. For more information about our sponsors, visit capefearbusiness.com.
Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm your host, Frank Williams, and today we have with us Keesha Starr of K Starr Coaching. Keesha, welcome. Thank you for
Hello,
being with
Frank.
us. Well,
Thank
before
you.
we get into business, I like to talk a little bit about where people came from and how they ended up in southeastern North Carolina. Obviously, we're in an area that has seen lots and lots of people moving in. So tell us a little bit about where you're from, and if you're not from southeastern North Carolina, how you wound up here.
So this is actually one of my favorite parts of your podcast, Frank. I love hearing where people are from. So I'm actually from Southern Indiana. So I'm technically a Hoosier. My husband would qualify me as a hillbilly. I I grew up in a cornfield on the back of a tractor riding horses, and moved there. I moved from there to Tennessee. I lived near Chattanooga for a while in a
Okay.
place called Cleveland. From there, moved to upstate New York. And then realized after 15 years of lots and lots of snow that I was not a fan. And so I relocated here to North Carolina about 13 years ago.
Okay. You said Cleveland, Tennessee?
Correct?
My parents used to live in Athens many years ago before I was born, and so we would go. They spent some time in Cleveland, and we would go to Watts Bar Lake, and a place called Sam's Boat Dock is the only thing that I remember, but it was apparently a fixture on the lake, so I know a little about that area. I haven't been there since I was a teenager, but am familiar with it. So it's a small world when you find out people lived in a place that your parents lived and you had no idea.
Oh, completely.
And
Completely.
Well, again, talking just about non-business things outside of work, what is your favorite non-work related thing, either thing to do or place to go in southeastern North Carolina? That's one of your reasons you love this area.
So this is funny because I didn't know what to say. Again, one of my favorite parts of your podcast is hearing all these great places. So I originally moved here when I arrived. Actually, it's closer to 14 years ago now. When I arrived, I realized that I loved the Cotton Exchange, which is in downtown Wilmington.
Right.
And I remember seeing the battleship, and I just really enjoyed that downtown vibe. So I guess if anything, I would like to go and just walk around downtown. But honestly, my favorite part about this area is being able to be outside so much and enjoy our weather. And so if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to hang out in my backyard.
Yeah, that's not a bad place to be.
I'm a homebody, so I enjoy my garden.
And that's a good, I get so many different answers to that question. A lot of them revolve around food. It's amazing. I have a lot of people who like to eat, apparently, and a lot of them revolve around the beach. But as close as I live to the beach, I don't make it to the beach that often because I'd rather, kind of like you, I love my backyard. The mosquitoes also seem to like it, so that's the only downside. But um, well, let's just change gears a little bit. Let's talk about your career journey and tell us about your background and how you wound up um, progressing through and becoming the owner of K Starr Coaching and whatever other
So
businesses you may be involved in.
yes, sorry. I should probably mention those too, huh? So for K Star Coaching specifically, I actually started in nonprofits. So when I was living in Tennessee, I was actually part of a theater troupe. So I spent 7 years on the road traveling and doing improv type theater. We traveled around the country. We even went overseas and traveled. So I've been in like 7 countries in Europe. I learned how
Wow,
to do skits in French, sketches in
interesting.
French because, you have to when you're there. So things like that were just kind of part of my nature. And I realized I loved even the theater troupe that I was a part of, we did it with a purpose. It was to help either churches or a nursing home or a nonprofit in the community. We were actually helping them while we were there. That was our purpose. So I really enjoyed that part of it. So started out in nonprofits. The problem is there's not a lot of money to be made in
Right.
nonprofits when you're working in them. And so I understood this concept of being able to build teams, but then I had to have like my day job that I would go and work to pay my bills. And so I would build a team of like 150 people and we'd gather around and we're, going to do this project and have this event for our nonprofit. And then I would get to work and they couldn't get 5 people to show up at the restaurant and wait tables. And you were giving them money to be there. And so I was so
Right.
confused. My thought was, what if we could actually help people enjoy where they work? What if there was this concept where we could actually have great leadership and good communication and understand and feel like we were able to bring our best selves to the job? And so that started my journey of what would it look like to be a business coach? And is that even possible? Honestly, I didn't even know it was a career choice. I just knew I wanted to help people.
Yeah, they don't talk about business coaching on career day in school. I mean,
They
they
don't.
talk about everything else, but that's,
Mhm.
business coaching, PR, and emergency management are 3 things I never heard talked about on career day. And that whole concept of enjoying where you work is so important. You think about the percentage of time that we spend at work, and it's just too much for it to be a place that you hate to be. I mean, we've all seen the movie Office Space, or at least most of us have, and I have
Yes.
a red stapler right here that's one of my favorite things on my desk that I ordered on Amazon because I love that movie, because it shows where I don't wanna work. And I've got friends that have worked in corporate America, and they talk about how frighteningly accurate that movie is in many cases. And I think in order to enjoy where you work, you probably have to have a boss who enjoys where they work.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
that's
where it
something.
starts.
Yeah, that's where it starts, and I know you probably start working with that business owner, and if they don't enjoy where they are, the people around them aren't gonna enjoy it either. And I've worked for unhappy business owners, and it's an unhappy place to be. Oh,
Oh, completely. What a lot of business owners don't realize is that, first of all, their team or their employees are a mirror of their own leadership, right? And so the crazy part about that thought is while those employees or that team is a mirror of their leadership, a lot of times that business owner will say that the employees are the reason that they're struggling to enjoy their job. And so if we can line those up, we can actually create a more healthy work environment.
well, I know you're a Maxwell certified instructor, and I know one of the things he talks about is the law of the lid, the importance of leadership. We've been studying John Maxwell here in my office, and it's so important because, you know, I've read another book called Extreme Ownership, written by 2 Navy SEALs, and I don't know if you've read that. By the nod, I'm guessing you have. And they say that if you've got a bad team, it's because you have a bad leader.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that's a pretty convicting statement to any of us that have owned a business and struggled with a team.
Completely. I mean, to hear that there's no such thing as a bad team, only bad leaders. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I
it's
know
hard to do it the right way.
John Maxwell talked about one of the people he had talked with that said that first thing they do when they take over a struggling organization is fire whoever's in charge. He said, what if they're a good leader? And he said, well, I wouldn't be here.
Mhm.
And,
Yes.
well,
Mhm.
with that in mind, tell us more about, your main business and any business. I know you mentioned prior to the podcast, you've got another business. So tell us about K Star Coaching and anything else you may be involved in and what you do and, who you help and how you help them.
Awesome. Well, yes, K Starr Coaching is my primary business right now. We've actually been in business 7 years, so that's
Awesome.
exciting. We passed that. What is it? Most businesses struggle to stay in business after 5 years. So those we reached a milestone. Yes, John.
Congratulations. That is an important milestone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We what we do is we help businesses, primarily business owners and those mid-level managers, make sure that they are communicating effectively, that they are producing not just the communication, but also the procedures, the processes, those things
Right.
that support those high performing teams. So really we go into businesses of all sizes. So I've worked with businesses as large as Walgreens, Walmart, McDonald's, Hilton, FedEx, lots of places that are like assisted living
Cracker Barrel.
facilities. And we haven't
Come
worked with
back to
Cracker
that later,
Barrel yet.
maybe.
Hey, Cracker Barrel, we'd love to work with you. So, so we help those employees and those leaders understand how they're impacting their teams. Now that looks different in every space. So a lot of what we do is reducing turnover, improving productivity, again, and making sure that people are in the right seat around the table. That's a big part of it. And so, what
Critical.
I do when I come in is I actually start with personality profiles, understanding each one of the team members and ensuring their objectives are aligned with their skill set.
And that right seat component is so critical because you can have a perfectly good person who's out of position and they are not going to perform well and aren't going to be happy doing it and may not even know why they're not happy.
Oh, completely. Actually, okay, so quick story, but this happens. I had a company that I was coaching, working with the owner, but then also, of course, with those mid-level managers. They had a manager position where one of their managers was moving out of that role and they were looking to replace them. The problem is the manager that was currently in that role was a people motivated person. So they were highly communicative,
Right.
very much on that side of understanding their team and making sure that they felt safe, which was an important element for this period of the company. The person that they're looking to replace them with was highly procedural. They were all task. They were all, just focused on what do we need to do. And because of the low communication of a task oriented person, now it's changing the whole dynamic. And that is actually a setup for a lot of turnover in that department.
And you need both on a team, but you need to have them in the right positions. I mean, you talked about the importance of procedures. Have you read Atomic Habits? And, I think we've read a lot of the same books, but I believe
So,
it was the author of that book that said you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your systems or something to that effect. And
yes.
that again, having the right systems in place is so important because they can make it easy to focus on what you need to focus on.
Mhm. Exactly. Actually, we just came back from the Global Leadership Summit, and the talk from Craig Rochelle, he kicked it off this year, which was incredible. And he talked about how being a leader is actually boring, and that consistency, that boringness of being a leader is the most valuable thing that a leader can do. And so what are those boring things, procedural wise, process wise, that we do day in and day out, because then our team can rely on them and then they can rise to the challenge based on that foundation.
And if you've got the system working, then you don't have to think about that part. You can just do it, and then you
Mhm.
can put your thinking where it needs to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine that, having time to actually do what you need to do as a leader. It's amazing.
It reminds me years ago, I had a friend who was clearly overwhelmed in his day-to-day life, and I bought him it was a Christian based book on, getting your life in order and managing your time, and this was someone I knew from church, and he said he was too busy to read it,
Good.
which proved to me that he was the person who needed to read it, but and it wasn't that he didn't want to, he was too busy. At least that's what he said, so, the person who often needs the help the most is the one least likely to take it sometimes, but that's an entirely different soapbox.
I was going to say, welcome to my world. Do you know
Yeah.
how many times I have employees come up to me and say, my boss needs you? And I'm like, great, but they have to hire me. You can't. Yeah, no, it's very true. We call it the tyranny of the urgent, and
Tyranny,
it takes over.
we've actually had entire sessions on that here at the office because it's so easy to get bogged down in those things that are screaming for your time that you don't do the things you need to do. That's my
Yes,
excuse for not going to the gym frequently.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
a good, that's a great
the
reason.
tyranny of the urgent now.
Mhm.
Well, you mentioned that you've helped all sizes of organizations. What type of organizations are you looking for? What's your ideal group you would like to talk with if somebody watching this could sounds like they could use your help?
Well, my favorite are those mid-level managers. So especially when you have a group of managers getting close to that 3 to 5 mark, you have your one manager and you're able to connect with them. But once you start to have 3 to 5 managers under you, it gets challenging to help them not only thrive in their management role, but then train them and mentor them and
Right.
coach them to really be effective leaders as well. And actually, another great talk that we heard at Global Leadership Summit, one of the speakers talked about how we get to decide how heavy we make the backpacks of the people under us. In other
That's a
words, we
great
get to
line.
right? I was like, oh,
I have not
so
heard that before. That is a great line.
oh, it was incredible. Her name is Juliet Funt. She is the author of A Minute to Think. She's actually currently working with people in the military, understanding how to better streamline their systems and create space. And she does work with other companies as well, obviously. But that's what she was talking about. We have these large boulders, these big rocks that need to be done in our business, and we get to decide how many of them we put in our team's backpack. And sometimes we load them down so much that they're not able to run as far and as fast as we want them to. We don't realize that's what we've done. And so, to answer your question, I actually work with those leaders who are recognizing that there's too many big rocks happening and that they're not able to function properly. And instead of just reorganizing them, we actually work on streamlining and even removing some of those or better delegating them so that, that way the company can thrive again.
I had a client years ago who every day would come in and add new things to my plate under the same amount of money. And one day I said, "Well, if you want me to do this, what do you want me to stop doing?" Because, and he didn't realize honestly how much I said, "There's no more time in my day. You've contracted for a certain amount of my time. If I'm going to do this, I have to quit doing something else." And we had a conversation and actually hired some additional help. But I think going back to something you were talking about, leaders, developing and mentoring the people who work for them. I've seen a lot of leaders who don't want to invest the time and energy to train their people right, and they just feel like I've got too much other work to do. I don't have time to do that, and they don't understand how important that is for their team to become all it can be.
It's interesting because and this is an old saying, you've probably heard it as well. That, what happens if I take the time to train my people and then they leave?
Yeah,
And then the response is, well, what happens if you don't and they
and they
stay?
stay.
Right? Then you're stuck with it. And so a lot of times we put training or coaching or mentoring even on the back burner. And we think that, oh, as long as the job's getting done, the job's getting done, the job's getting done. And actually, I was just on the phone with a client the other day that they're going through some of that hard work to really change some things in their company. And I just said to this owner, congratulations, great job. I'm so proud of you for doing the hard work because what you're encountering, the challenges of it, is the very reason why you see so many not great businesses out there. You see so many teams that
Right.
have challenges because it's hard to do it right, but you are. And we need more of those leaders that are willing to do it the right way.
So, I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the same business that I'm in, and he took over an existing PR agency, and they've got 45 or 50 employees. And when we were talking, I was asking him about his systems and realized that I had better systems than he did, even though my business is much smaller. And they had gotten that large without. And he said, "I wish we had done all this up front
Mhm.
because it's so hard to implement those when you've got people who have already settled into their own system that's not part of a company system." And it's and I've observed when I hire somebody who's out of college that's doesn't think they know everything, it's much easier to help them fit into a system than somebody who's been working 10 or 15 years and thinks that they've got their way of doing things down pat.
Completely. Oh my goodness. Actually, it's interesting that you say that. Something that a lot of business owners don't realize is that when you hire someone new, that it only takes about 6 to 8 weeks for them to assimilate to the culture that you have already in your business. And so if you have a strong culture, a good culture, and I shouldn't even say strong or good because honestly, your culture is your culture. It is what it is. Whether it's good or bad or indifferent or whatever, it's still your culture. And so to say the culture that you have, if it's a culture of helpfulness and strong customer service and teamwork and those kind of things, it's only going to take 6 to 8 weeks for them to figure that out. And if it's not, then they've already learned all those bad habits within 6 to 8
That
weeks
is
of arriving.
Have you
Hmm.
read Culture by Design?
I am not.
It's a great book, and I read it a few years ago, and I don't remember who recommended it, but they talk about taking your core values and rephrasing them as action statements. And so it's not, we treat people well, it's we say thank you, for instance. It's very specific. And we went through that exercise a few years ago. And anytime I interview someone, I give them that as part of their pre application information and ask them about it in the interview. If they haven't read it, that's a problem. But if they don't seem that excited about it, that's another problem because we really try to follow it. And, that doesn't mean we're perfect. But one example was one company, rather than just a simple thing they did, it was a hotel, I believe they referenced in the book. And rather than saying, when someone asked where a specific amenity was, rather than saying how to get there, they would walk them to it. Just a very simple little difference in their culture that made it feel so much more personal than it's down around the corner. Well, here, let me show you. Little things
Yes.
like that, but incorporating specifics. So one of them is sending every client a thank you note, things like that. and that we're trying to implement. We don't always do it perfectly, but it's certainly our goal to do that.
It's really fascinating to me how people don't realize the weight. And I guess actually, to put it back, extreme ownership, right? I'm practicing that.
Right.
To put it back on my industry as business coaches, we haven't fully explained the value and the strength of a strong mission statement and strong core values, because they should equally tell you what you are going to do, but also what you're not going to
What you're
do.
not going to do.
And if you haven't implemented them to that point where they're stopping you from doing something, then you actually haven't tapped into the full strength of what your core values and your mission statement really is.
I had a mentor years ago who said it's just as important who you choose not to work with as it is who you choose to work with, and I thought that was insightful. And that's something that's hard to say no when somebody says, "I want to hire you to do X." But we had a client a while back who wanted us to go out and sell advertisements for them. We do marketing and PR, but we are not salespeople, and they kept pushing us, wanting us to do that, and it was just not what we do. And eventually, they took all of their business somewhere else, and that's okay. They weren't a great fit. And, I'd rather work with someone who is a good fit. I don't want to work with everybody. I want to work with people I can help. And that's nothing negative about them. They just weren't the right fit for us at the right time. And you've got to know that you'll be much happier and I think more profitable working with good clients than just any client.
Absolutely. Every single time. And that also means that you're growing as a company, because one of the things that happens is when we find something that we can be successful at as companies and as humans, it's very tempting to stay in that level of comfort and go, "Oh, this is the thing that's always worked," and never be in that place where we're ready to innovate. We use the age old example, but there's a reason why we don't see Radio Shacks anymore. There's a reason why some of these companies have gone by the wayside.
There's a reason why Blockbuster is not a streaming service.
Right.
It should, if they had seen it coming, they would have started a streaming service before these others, and they could have been in the perfect position to do it.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember when Netflix was a DVD mailing service where you had to place your order and they would mail you the DVD through the mail. And yeah, can you imagine?
And the challenge is balancing innovation with wild goose chases on things that aren't part of your mission too, and that's a whole different level of discernment because it's easy to say yes to everything that comes along, even if it's not related to what you do.
Oh, yeah. One of the exercises that I actually have with all of my clients in different ways is guardrails. We just talk about,
Right.
when you're driving down a road, you need guardrails, both to make sure you don't go off the edge of the cliff and so you don't slam into the wall, right? You have to have them. And so, what are the guardrails that you have in place around your time, around your mission, around what you're really focused on as a business? And make sure that those are in place, because within guardrails, you can still drive on that road and you have some flexibility, but you're not going to go too far one direction or the other. And I think that's where we replace innovation with just going off the edge of a cliff and think that we're doing a good thing. We're actually not.
And the guardrails, they keep you in the lines, and you can go as fast as you want to as long as you don't hit the guardrail.
Exactly. It's
And I've
amazing.
heard a similar analogy, and I think it's also important to give your team members guardrails and allow them to set some guardrails even on their own time too. Like if I walk to the other end of my office and see that their door is closed, I know they're in the middle of something or on a call, and I don't bother them. Even though people would say, "Well, I'm the boss; I can go in there anytime I want to." I want them to set those boundaries because I know that they're working on something that I would probably disrupt if I walked in. And it's something that they're probably better at than I am.
That's the best part about it, is when you have those people on your team. There's a reason why I don't own my own calendar anymore, because I messed it up one too many times and I knew it wasn't a good idea. And so now I have someone that handles things like that for me. Now, if I try to step in and record things or schedule things or whatever, I will mess up that system
Yeah.
every single time. It's not mine to hold.
Same with bookkeeping for me. I've got a lot of it automated, but I have a bookkeeper that handles it and then goes over it with me on a recurring basis. But most of it's automated where neither one of us have to spend time on it. But I want that trained set of eyes that has a skill set that's not mine to look at it.
Yes, absolutely. It's vital.
You know. Well,
Hmm.
You mentioned that you had another business beyond K Star. Tell us about what that is, and also tell us about your book, or I guess it's now books.
Well, because I don't know that I get bored. I just have a lot that I like to do. So what happened was K Star Coaching obviously is me. Just kind of always been a solo coach under the John Maxwell umbrella. But I realized also that coaching can be a very lonely profession. And as I described to one of my friends one time, they said, where did this idea of this next business come from? And I said, well, I did the coaching thing, am doing the coaching thing, but I've kind of been on my own island doing it by myself. And I got tired of that. So now I'm going to build a city instead and invite people to come to that city. So the second business is actually called the Star Network. And what the Star Network is it's a group or a network of coaches. So coaches who are all in different spaces. So you don't have to be a John Maxwell coach. You could be a Tony Robbins coach. You could just be coaching through a different organization or a different certification. You can also be different modalities. So health coaches, fitness coaches, wellness coaches, finance coaches, business coaches, communicate, like you name it, right? Anyone under that umbrella can still come into the Star Network. Now, the benefit of being a part of it is you have all the connections of those fellow coaches. So every coach needs a coach. I have like 12 because I'm extra hard headed. So I have different people that I go to for different things. Um, and so the idea is that we have this built-in community of people who are constantly supporting and challenging and training each other even on these different concepts. The other part of it is you as a consumer can come in and find a vetted network of high quality coaches. And sometimes that's the challenge as consumers. We know that we need support or help in a certain area, but it's hard to know where to go and what to do. So we wanted to create kind of a one-stop shop where you could come in and find different voices for whatever is going on. And maybe it's multiple that you want to work with at one time. And we're able to all help and make sure that you're growing in your business, in your home, in your life.
And how do people find out about your two businesses if they want to contact you?
So the starnetwork.com is our website and then kstarcoaching.com. So we
Two
have either
R's,
one of
correct?
those. Correct, with two R's.
And tell your first book that you wrote was The Bright Side of Monday, which I read and I thought it was very insightful and had lots of great points. Tell us about your book and what led you to write that, and also how you decided on the title. And I think you mentioned another book as well.
Yes. So, the bright side of Monday, thank you very much for your thoughts and your feedback. I am so glad you enjoyed it. The idea behind it was simply to kind of put down on paper the conversation that I have with several of my clients and even people that I encounter in the community. And that is that we need to make sure that we have these strong teams that we're working with. And so the bright side of Monday kind of breaks that down. The reason why it's the bright side of Monday, actually, the working title prior to this was why I didn't hate my job. and and then, what if I didn't hate my job was this concept of, um, you know, actually, full disclosure, what it came from was how many people sit in their driveway on Monday morning and think, oh my gosh, do I really have to go back to that place again? And know that they do, but they have to kind of
Yeah.
psych themselves up. And that's how the book starts. So we wanted to create this conversation to help people realize that there is something that you can do to create a bright side of your Monday. And that's the bright side of Monday book. And we wanted it to be short, sweet, and to the point because I like to be as efficient as possible when getting things done. Um,
And, just thinking out loud, if you wanted another book idea, maybe a manager's version about how to have that, how the manager can create that bright side of Monday for all their teams.
oh, that's a great idea. See, okay, so now we need to
That's your free
collaborate on
tip
that
for the
one.
day.
Well, that's great. That's great. Okay, so that will actually help you understand then a little bit why the second book came up, which I wasn't planning on writing. But it's actually based on some content. I have monthly mastermind groups that we do. They're called growth accelerators. And I didn't think about writing a second book, but then realized there was an entire year's worth of content that just kind of flowed one month into the other. And there was a theme to it. And so the second book that is going to be out in the next month or two is called The View from the Glass House.
Hmm.
And the reason why it's called that is because we are living in a world where, as business leaders and business owners, as entrepreneurs, as coaches, as creators, people in the podcast space, we are all in these places where we are more visible than ever. It's so easy to just have our entire lives kind of be on display,
Right.
but we are also living in a culture that is less connected than ever. So you can be highly visible and yet not feel connected. And how do we actually thrive in a space like that? How can we actually live in a healthy way and not feel like everything in our life is on display? And so now we just have to be fake.
And
And
sometimes when
so,
you're in that glass house, you feel like everybody's throwing rocks at the glass too.
oh gosh, yes. Yes.
I mean,
So you get it.
I get
Yes.
it for reasons not related to business, but yeah, I've been in that situation where it seems like everybody's trying to shoot at you and you're just trying to do your thing, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, and again, even to that example, what happens is we know that we want to be in that space. I'll use the example of like an influencer, someone who's creating content consistently, and you feel like you just have to create more content so that way you can stay viable, so that people are listening to you, and there's this push and this push. But then you almost create this brand that you feel trapped in, and you don't realize that the very thing that you work so hard to build is the very thing that's trapped you, and now you don't know how to live in that space.
Glass
And
house can become a glass prison if you're not careful.
yes, yes. So how do we help people who feel trapped in that glass prison to step out and find freedom again and be able to live in a way? And I go back to the healthy part because we don't realize how unhealthy we can get in that
Right.
space when we feel like we're always on display.
And it can become an identity that consumes you. Like for me, I do a podcast, but I am not a podcast. I'm podcasting is something I do. It's not who I am. And I understand that. And even other things I do, both business and community wise, they are things I do. They're not who I am. They don't define me as a person. But I think a lot of times people get their role and their identity mixed up.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's very easy to do.
I've done it before. That's why I know it because I've learned it the hard way. um,
Same.
Well, anything else you want to tell us about your businesses before we start to wrap this up? I don't like to go much past about 40 minutes, even though I think we could talk for an hour because people tend to tune out. We're in a short attention span society these days.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean,
Squirrel.
I know, right? Um, okay, so any last things? Yes, just we would love to help. If you are a business owner, a business leader, someone who's in that management space, um, we would love to have a conversation. Feel free to reach out. Our whole purpose and goal is to make sure that you in your space have the resources that you need, have the support that you need, can have those conversations that you need to have to be able to move forward. So don't stay stuck where you are. Keep going.
And I think that, if anybody needs help, I would encourage you to reach out to Keisha and she'll be tagged in the post for this podcast. So you'll be able to find her. Um, Love to close it out with just a few pieces of advice. And I feel like we've given lots of advice during this podcast anyway, but what have you learned during your career that you wish you had known when you started?
I wish that I had known, well, actually 2 things, if I can. One of them is, and this is my advice to anybody that I sit with now, that is looking to either start their own business or develop an idea, and that is, don't be afraid to fund your own dream. I grew up in a space where I felt like if I wasn't full-time working on my dream, that I was kind of not being true to it, that I would get
Right,
distracted doing something else. And actually what I found over time was I needed to fund my own dreams. So sometimes you need to work another job while you're working on your
right.
business and then be able to switch that. And just to give people the freedom to do that, the license to do that, I think is really important. Um, Second piece of advice, and I'm going to quote again, the Global Leadership Summit. This is not supposed to be a commercial for them, but just being honest, um, it was incredible. And actually this speaks back to your companies, Frank, because it's about pioneers. So John Maxwell spoke about pioneers during part of the conference. And he said, pioneers are only crazy until it works. Explanations don't help. Just go do it. People follow what they see and what they hear. So if you're feeling like you have an idea or you want to try something, don't wait. Actually, another part of it, he says people only cheer what they understand. If they don't cheer, just wear your armor. Um, there are a lot of times that people won't understand what you're working on or what you're wanting to develop. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that they don't understand it yet. And that's
Exactly.
okay. Yeah. It's only crazy until you get it done. And then all of a sudden you're not crazy anymore. So don't worry about being crazy. Just go get it done.
I'm sure there was someone who worked at Blockbuster that thought this idea of watching movies on this internet streaming was crazy,
Exactly.
and now
Thanks.
look where they are and where streaming is. Well, similar question: what advice would you give someone who is starting out either in business or in a career like yours?
Learn your lessons well. Everything that we do, another quote from that, from another speaker is that identity precedes mission. And you have to be it before you can fully, authentically live it. And so everything that I do, everything that I coach, everything that I share, it's not just from something that I read in a book, it's lived. And the only way I can live that and learn that is to go back and review my own life lessons and get the most out of it. So a lesson learned is never wasted when it's shared.
And I 100% agree with that. I think my only caveat to that would be don't keep learning the same lesson over and over.
Yeah, please
And
don't.
I've done that.
Oh,
And
I have
talking
to.
about learning lessons from your own experience, and I'm gonna soapbox on that for a minute because I think it's important, especially in this age of AI. And I had someone who I'm pretty sure used Chat GPT to generate a blog post on a topic that they had no experience in. And like I think if you're gonna do coaching, counseling, thought leadership, it needs to be from your own experience, not something that AI gave you. And, that's just so critical. And I would encourage people if you're talking to a coach like Keisha, make sure they've got some life experience. They're not just somebody who just to them it's theory, it's real.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I said, and you can probably appreciate this, Frank. Early on in my career, I learned that there were some times that it was really challenging to get out the door and do the thing that I needed to do. It's hard to build a business. And so I started saying, you know what? Until you can take me back to your bathroom floor and show me the outline that you've worn from being in the fetal position, from not being sure whether or not you can get up that day. Until you can show me that spot in your life, then don't speak into my business. Thank you, but no thank you.
Eh, 100%. I agree with that. Final question, and you can pick which one you want to answer, and I think this will probably be an easy one for you. You may have trouble narrowing it down, but when it comes to improving yourself and educating yourself, what books do you like the most or podcasts do you listen to beyond John Maxwell and this podcast?
We don't have time for a whole library. um, okay, so John Maxwell certified coach. So yes, we call him Papa for a reason. You're never going to go wrong whenever you read a book from him. Actually, one of my favorite authors is Patrick Lencioni. If you haven't read him, he's excellent and he's really great, especially for new leaders or younger leaders, because he writes in fables. And some of his original books, actually, Three Signs of a Miserable Job, is what spurred my career in
Well,
business
say the name
coaching.
of the book again.
Three Signs of a Miserable Job.
Okay, yeah, I've
Hmm.
heard of it. Yeah, I think he has a podcast as well, and I can't remember the name of it. It's on my podcast list of things that I intend to listen to, but again, get too busy to do half the time.
So he does talk about the 6 types of working genius. That's another program that he has and work that he does, which is incredible. But yes, there are so many different books. Death by Meeting is another one if you're struggling with the meetings in your business. So great, great content. And then speaker, I love John Acuff. He's an excellent writer. He wrote the book Soundtracks. Now he has All It Takes Is a Goal. He's working on another book. So but he's an excellent speaker and gives a lot of really great actionable advice, things that you can just take away and use right away.
And I like when people give me things I can use. It's one thing to get theory, but I want to be able to do something with it.
Yeah.
I started reading a book a while back and I don't even remember the name of it, but it's halfway finished and it's in my bookshelf at home because I wasn't getting anything out of it I could use.
Mm,
And if,
absolutely.
Whereas I take extreme ownership, there was something in every chapter I could use.
Mhm. Have
And
you listened to the Audible version of that one yet?
I don't do Audible well. I don't. I see squirrels and get distracted, but I'm much better at reading.
Yes,
I'm the
absolutely.
opposite of a lot of people. I don't do Audible, but I'll sit down and read a book. And,
Well, it makes sense.
you know,
I love that. So, when you listen to it, it's in their voices, and so you get different things out of it than
okay.
when I read it. But yes, I
Listening
have
to it
both.
in Navy SEAL voices might be better than other books.
That's why I asked because
I
it's an
may check that
experience.
out. Mhm.
And on that note, if you walk while you're listening, it actually helps the gray matter in your brain build faster, which
Mm,
means you're actually learning and retaining more.
okay. I'll have to keep that in mind. But, well, Keisha, thank you for joining us again. I think we could stay on here for an hour, but I do want to wrap it up, and I appreciate you joining us. And I look forward to checking out your newest book, and hope to see you around Leland soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Frank.
You're welcome. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, you too.